Hi guys, this is Vidas.
And Usha.
Let's start episode 193 of Ask Vidas and Usha podcast. This question was sent by Jasper, and he wrote, "Thanks for the recordings of the BWV 669, 670 and 671 chorale preludes. I purchased your 671 fingered score a couple of months ago and I have had much enjoyment playing through it very slowly. I am treating it more as an exercise in multiple parts, as I cannot see myself playing it at a listenable tempo. Incidentally, one thing that I had to do was to white out all your fingering with correction fluid and print it back in freehand to a font size that my poor eyesight could cope with. One question I have: how do you recommend practicing to bring out the individual parts? Just playing it through to get the fingering and notes correct must sound awful unless the parts can be articulated. To deal with this problem, I assume two methods. One, to play each part separately, although this is not easy with so many parts together on the printed score. The other seems to be to play everything but to concentrate on just one part at a time and ensure that at least that one sings." Jasper. So Osha, first of all, Jasper played Kyrie from Klavierübung Part 3 by Bach, and he seemed to enjoy the recordings, and he recently played the last Kyrie, right? The 5-part setting, and that's a very thick texture, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but it's very beautiful too.
So he had to adjust my fingering a little bit to enlarge it, right? Because his eyesight is poor and he had to have a bigger font. So his question is about listening to individual parts, right? That's a tricky question.
Yes, it is.
Do you remember the time when you last played this piece? Did you have to do something special, or articulation came all naturally for you?
Well, it came quite natural, although at the end of this particular chorale, it's not that easy to do because it's very chromatic and, as you said earlier, it's a thick texture. But I haven't practiced, each single line of this particular chorale. Usually, I practice individual lines when I'm working on fugues.
If you have a trouble to articulate thick texture, then it means just that this piece is too difficult to you, right, Osha?
Could be.
I would go back to a 3-part texture or at least 4-part texture, because 5-part texture is something it has to come very naturally. When I played it for myself a few weeks ago, yes, I slowed down the tempo quite a bit, made it very, very slowly, and that saved me, of course, a lot of time. But I also didn't practice each part separately. I listened to each part separately, yes, but I didn't have to do all those separate parts because I prepared my homework, for many years before.
Yes, another thing that might help, I think singing each line would be helpful too.
He didn't do that. He didn't say, Jasper, about singing, but he says to concentrate on just one part. He sort of focused on one part at a time, and you're suggesting basically to sing it, right?
Yes.
That would probably help him a lot. I remember another trick. I think my first organ teacher um, said, suggested to me. She was in Klaipėda at the art school. Yelena Paradis, I think her name was, and she said you could play with silent keyboard, one part, and louder all the others. The part that you need to concentrate on, you could first play louder than the others, and then do the opposite, make it much softer than the others.
But I don't think it would work for this chorale because you play all voices on one manual. So how would put it into a different manual?
Most of the time, though, you could do two voices in each hand. Most of the time, not always. So then at least two parts would be softer and two parts would be louder. But it's not perfect solution, obviously. You suggested better, I think, right, to sing.
Yes, and of course articulation. It doesn't matter how many voices you play, you must articulate each of it.
Well, let's assume that Jasper is so motivated to play this piece that he can do all those individual lines first, right? It will be more than 16 combinations, maybe 20 something, over 20 or even 30. I haven't counted all the individual solo parts, then two voice combinations, three part combinations, four part combinations, and only then, 5-part texture. Maybe he can do that, but not everybody is so, focused, right?
Yes.
But then you say he has to sing any part: soprano, second soprano, alto, tenor, the bass, in his range.
Yes, that's true, but what I also mean that you must play all other voices, while you singing one.
You're not suggesting to omit that voice which is being sung.
No. Because I think it's very important to practice in this kind of thick texture, that you would get used to it, and you could control your touch, ordinary touch.
If this was an air training exercise, you would omit.
Sure, but not in this case.
You would omit the part that you are singing.
Because look, if you will omit one voice that you are singing, for example, you might, ruin up your fingering.
Yes.
And it's important to play with the same fingering all the time, because it will fasten up your progress.
What if he uses, our scores with printed out fingering and pedaling, and can then play, let's say, one soprano and another to sing, but with correct fingering?
Well, yes and no, because still the position of the hand will be different while playing one voice.
You're right.
So I would say, practice all voices together. Maybe there's, not all voices together, but right hand and pedal, left hand and pedal, and then, both hands together, and then everything together. That's what I would do. But in slow tempo and sing each line.
And if it's really, really difficult or too difficult, like a huge mountain like Everest in front of you, then I think you should do a few easier pieces.
Yes, and if you like this particular collection, which I personally do, I would suggest that you would don't start with these, large chorales. You could perfectly do those little ones.
And duets.
And duets, yes. And these, little chorales, they are just wonderful pieces. excellent examples of Baroque writing, and Baroque composition, and these free kyries. I remember playing them in the concert, actually, those little ones in Lincoln. So I think they are wonderful. Vater Unser is a wonderful example of chorales, the short one.
Did you have fingering written out for those pieces or not?
Well, maybe just a few spots, of those. But if you are a beginner organist, I would suggest you would write down fingering for those pieces as well.
We haven't prepared such scores yet for you, but in the future we hopefully will. So stay tuned for that. If you're eager to play with our fingerings, which produce natural articulate legato almost without thinking. Okay, thanks guys. This was Vidas.
And Ausra.
Please send us more of your questions. It's a really fascinating discussion we're having here with Ausra. We love helping you grow. And remember, when you practice,
miracles happen.